I still remember the exact moment my son lowered his eyes and whispered, "Dad." My father-in-law says our bloodline isn't worthy of their family. For a second, I honestly thought I had gone deaf. I was standing outside a beautiful white suburban house with Christmas lights hanging from the roof, holding a $10 toy truck for my grandson, while snow fell softly onto my old work boots. And my own son couldn't even look me in the face. I'm 71 years old now, and I've lived through factory layoffs, military funerals, unpaid hospital bills, and the kind of winters that freeze your bones from the inside out. But nothing in my life ever hurt like hearing my own child sound ashamed of where he came from. You see, I raised that boy alone after his mother died from breast cancer when he was just 12. I worked double shifts at a steel factory outside Pittsburgh for nearly 25 years. My hands still shake from those machines. I drove an old blue pickup truck with rust under the doors, and every Friday night I'd stop at a little diner near Route 8 just to bring him pancakes because he loved breakfast for dinner. I missed birthdays working overtime so he could have basketball shoes that didn't come from the clearance aisle. I sold my father's hunting rifle to help pay his college application fees. I skipped meals some nights, pretending I wasn't hungry, because growing boys need more food than old men. And when he graduated college, Lord, I cried harder than I did at my own wedding. I thought all those sacrifices meant something. I thought family meant something. Then he met Vanessa. She wasn't a bad woman, not really. But her family had money. Old money. The kind that lives in gated neighborhoods with stone fountains out front and fake smiles at dinner tables. Her father owned construction companies, country club memberships, vacation homes in Florida. The first time I met him, he shook my hand like he was touching something dirty. I noticed it immediately. Men my age notice those things. He looked at my Walmart jacket, my cracked fingernails, my old pickup truck parked beside his Mercedes, and I could already see the judgment sitting behind his eyes. But I ignored it because my son looked happy. That's all fathers really want. Happiness for their children, even if it costs us our own. Over the years, though, I started noticing changes in my boy. Small things at first. He stopped inviting me to certain dinners. He'd ask me to dress nicer before family events. One Thanksgiving, Vanessa's mother laughed softly when I accidentally used the wrong fork, and my son pretended not to hear it. Another time, during my granddaughter's birthday party, I overheard Vanessa's father saying, "People like him don't belong around influential families." People like him? Funny thing is, when you're poor your whole life, you learn how to swallow humiliation quietly. You smile, nod, and carry your pain home alone. That's exactly what I did. Then came the night that finally broke me. It was Christmas Eve 2 years ago. I drove 3 hours through a snowstorm with wrapped presents in the back seat and homemade cookies beside me because my grandson once told me Grandpa's cookies taste better than the store ones. I arrived at their house and could hear laughter inside, music, glasses clinking. For a moment, I just sat in my truck watching the warm yellow lights through the windows, thinking maybe this year would feel different. Maybe family could still feel like family. But before I even reached the front door, my son stepped outside, looking pale and nervous. He closed the door behind him so nobody inside could hear, and then he said those words. "Dad, maybe tonight isn't a good night. Vanessa's father thinks, well, he thinks our bloodline doesn't fit their image. Their image. Imagine hearing that after spending your entire life breaking your back to build a future for your child. I just stood there, holding those presents, while snow collected on my shoulders. I remember hearing laughter from inside the house, while my son avoided my eyes like a guilty stranger. And the worst part? He didn't defend me. Not once. He just kept saying, "Please understand." Understand what? That the blood running through his veins suddenly embarrassed him? That the same hands which fed him, clothed him, carried him through fevers and nightmares were now too common for his wealthy in-laws? I nodded slowly because old men learn how to hide heartbreak. Then I placed the presents on the porch, turned around, and walked back to my truck. I cried so hard in that parking lot coffee shop down the road that a waitress brought me napkins without saying a word. Sometimes strangers show more kindness than family. After that night, I stopped calling much. Retirement already felt lonely enough. Days blurred together inside my tiny apartment. I'd drink cheap coffee by the window, watching other families come and go, while wondering how a father becomes invisible while still alive. I started thinking about nursing homes, about dying quietly, about whether anybody would even notice if my chair stayed empty for too long. Months passed. Then, one rainy afternoon, there was a knock at my door. I opened it and saw my son standing there alone. No expensive coat, no rehearsed smile, just tears. Real tears. He looked older somehow, broken. He told me Vanessa had finally left him after her father convinced her he'd never truly belong in their world either. "I defended them for years," he said, crying like a little boy again. "And in the end, they treated me exactly how I treated you. I didn't say, 'I told you so.' Pain doesn't need victory speeches." He sat at my kitchen table drinking black coffee while staring at my old military photo hanging on the wall. And after a long silence, he whispered, "Dad, I became ashamed of the very man I should have been proud of." That sentence nearly destroyed me, because all fathers really want is to know their children are proud of them. Before he left that night, he hugged me harder than he had in 20 years. And as I stood there, holding my grown son while rain tapped softly against the windows, I realized something painful about life. Money can buy big houses, perfect lawns, and country club respect, but it cannot buy the kind of bloodline built by sacrifice, loyalty, and love. And if you ever find yourself ashamed of the hands that raised you, one day life has a cruel way of teaching you exactly what those hands were worth.